Hey y'all, Seth Bradley here. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending your valuable time learning with us. Absolutely appreciate each and every one of you. I've got a small ask. If you'd please just take a few seconds and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening from, it goes a long way in landing the best new guests for our show. That's it. Thanks again. Let's go. What's going on, Laune Nation? It's your host, Seth Bradley. Welcome back to the Passive Income Attorney Podcast, the best place for learning about the world of alternative passive investing. Today, we answer the question, how do banks make money? And how do we become the bank? Today's guest, Tom Laune, had a unique path to creating what he calls the Bulletproof Wealth strategy. He enjoyed a 30-year career in the music industry as a recording engineer and producer, working with acts such as REM, Bruce Springsteen, and Amy Grant. Wow, that's quite the lineup there. Several decades later, Tom suffered from a high-frequency hearing loss while mixing a record and was no longer able to continue the job that he loved. But it turns out that unfortunate event turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to him. It provided a consistent tax-free monthly income payment that allowed him to go back to school and learn how to help others protect their financial future by becoming a chartered financial consultant, underwriter, and special needs consultant. He also became an authorized infinite banking practitioner. So after many years of education and research, Tom created the Bulletproof Wealth strategy to help others protect their income and grow wealth. All right. Can't wait to jump into this interview. It's going to be an awesome one. Buckle up. Let's jump in.
This is the Passive Income Attorney Podcast, where you'll discover the secrets and strategies of the ultra wealthy on how they build streams of passive income to give them the freedom we all want. Attorney Seth Bradley will help you end the cycle of trading your time for money so you can make money while you sleep. Start living the good life on your own terms. Now, here's your host, Seth Bradley.
What's going on, Tom? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me on, Seth. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely, brother. Well, let's dive right in, man. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know it's fascinating. Tell us about your story and just take it back as far as you'd like to.
Awesome. Well, I have a bit of a unique background in that I was 29 years in the music industry, and I was a mix engineer and producer, and I absolutely loved what I did. I mean, it was so much fun. I got to work with people like Bruce Springsteen and Mavis Staples and the Fabulous Thunderbirds and REM. I did their Green album in the late 80s. So I got a really cool background and had a blast in music. And at the end of that career, I started to lose hearing in one ear. And unfortunately, I was kind of stuck because my whole career was based on me being able to hear perfectly because I was the last guy to make the final tweaks on how things sounded, if that makes sense. So it was a real shocker when that happened. And what happened is 20 years earlier, I had purchased a disability policy that was a long-term disability policy on the recommendation of my financial advisor. And that policy ended up sort of being the thing that allowed me to transition and really started a new career. So I went back to school and ended up getting 3 financial designations because I wanted to learn how to help people the way that I was helped, right? So I started out with a chartered life underwriter designation, a chartered financial consultant, and a chartered special needs consultant designation. So I could kind of learn the whole financial picture of what all was out there, if that makes sense. And then that was the germination of me really starting this Bulletproof Wealth strategy, because let me tell you something, Seth, and this is for your audience too. If you don't have the ability to work, your life picture changes like big time, you know? And for me, not being able to do a job that I had done for 29 years was, it was a major shift. And I was just so grateful, and I wanted to give back and teach other people what I knew.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, man. I mean, you name dropped a few big names there at the beginning, though, right? Springsteen and REM. That's
Yeah.
pretty incredible that you had the
Yeah.
opportunity to do that.
Yes, it's wonderful. I mean, and the people are super nice. And the way it worked for me in the music industry was the higher up the food chain I went in terms of talent, the more chilled and relaxed people get. Because they don't have anything necessarily to prove, you know. I mean, I worked with Keith Richards on a solo album, and the guy was just completely, you know, like chill. He wasn't in any way like, oh, I'm a star. I worked with Joe Walsh from the Eagles. I did a soundtrack with him for John Candy movie called The Great Outdoors. And he, again, was just a pleasure to work with, no ego whatsoever. I mean, just amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. You know, when you get to a certain point, you're not trying to prove yourself anymore. You're not trying to like hold yourself above everyone because everybody already knows.
Everybody knows he's got nothing to prove, man. He's just like, you know who he is. So anyways, that was cool. It really was. So that was the germination and foundation of the Bulletproof Wealth strategy. I knew that protecting your ability to earn a living was crucial, right? And in 2013, actually it was 2012, I went to an Austrian economic conference because I'd always been interested in Austrian economics. And I went to hear Robert Murphy and another Austrian economist speak. And lo and behold, they were talking about this concept where you kind of opt out of the traditional financial system and create your own privatized bank. And the mechanism that you do that with is specially designed life insurance. So it's important to just say right up front that it's not that the life insurance is the magic thing. It's that the life insurance provides the vehicle that allows you to take over the banking function. So I combined that with my protection of income and then added another element of an option strategy to allow yourself to be able to create bigger banks in the future. And I wrapped it all together and call it the Bulletproof Wealth strategy. And I got that name trademarked. I'm pretty proud of that one. I love it. So anyways, that's kind of the germination, and it's made up of really three things. And of course, long-term disability is something that sometimes your employers provide that, right? And what people don't realize is they can go to their HR manager and request to get a larger policy and just pay a little bit of money and max themselves out on that. And almost nobody does it. So my first conversation I have, if I happen to be talking to somebody who is a W-2 employee, is have you went to HR and asked to max out your long-term DI? Because most people have not. And it's something that everybody needs to do who's listening to this.
Yeah, I remember when I was working at a big firm, we used to have that. Unfortunately, I don't have that right now as an entrepreneur. Is that type of policy similar to, well, I shouldn't say similar to, is it bought in the same way as, let's say, a whole life insurance policy where you can like lend against it, similar to that? Or is it something completely different?
It's literally a totally different thing. So that's why my strategy is not just infinite banking. It doesn't accumulate cash value. Okay. It's more like a health policy, in that, you know, you get to keep it until you're 70. And then pretty much the value of it is done at that point, but it does protect you through a lot of your peak earning years. Right. And so to be honest with you, they're harder to get than whole life policies because they have to really make sure that your income is supported by how much they're willing to give you so that you're not predisposed to want to go on claim. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
if you got a disability policy that is paying $20,000 a month and you are making $12,000 a month, that's a problem, right? Because there's just a million ways that you can say, well, you know, my wrist is killing me. I can't work, right. You know, that kind of thing. So they just really want to make sure that the underwriting is a lot more stringent, to put it in insurance terms, okay, sure. than life insurance. So anyways, there's the other thing that is tricky that I need to say is that they only insure active income. So being that this is the passive income show, passive income comes to you whether or not you're working or not. So that is not insurable from a disability insurance perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the passive income, you shouldn't have to do anything to get it once you've done that
Right.
due diligence up front. So, by definition, that makes sense.
Totally. And I've had clients that are getting so much passive income that they qualify for nothing. Right. So it's really an interesting scenario on qualifying for that. But hey, the ultimate scenario to be in my opinion, is having your passive income exceed your active income. Right. When you're in that scenario, you're financially free by my definition. Would you agree with that, Seth?
I would. Yes.
Cool. So that is one element of it, is the disability protection. I also bake that into the cake with the whole life policies that I do. And the way I do that is there's a thing called an enhanced disability waiver premium, which is an own occupation. So you got to read the fine print waiver of you having to put in any money if you can't work. So if the insurance company pays that minimum premium for you if you can't work, and they do that for the first 6 years own occupation, and after that it's any occupation is the definition. So that's a little bit in the weeds, but own occupation just means your specific job that you're doing, and any occupation is a much harder hurdle to climb because that means you can't do anything. So
that makes sense.
Anyways, yeah, that's basically another element to the Bulletproof Wealth strategies, including that waiver in the whole life policy.
Gotcha. So we've got, I believe there are 3 elements, right, to the Bulletproof Wealth strategy. So the first is the disability insurance. The second is the whole life infinite banking policy. Maybe we'll stick with that for now. What do you recommend as far as going into that piece of the strategy, the infinite banking? We've talked about that on the show before, but maybe you can give your own take.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to where are you saving money, right? Where are you? A term I like to use is where are you warehousing your wealth, because the truth is that people like to put their money into money jail for some reason, which I consider to be qualified plans, 401ks, IRAs, things that you can't get the money back out. It's not really liquid, and you're going to have to pay a big penalty and taxes to touch it, right? The reality is on those money jail products, you are in a partnership with the government, truthfully, and they are going to get paid before you get access to that money. And so I like to put my personal funds as much as possible, and the goal is to have your income and your premium meet. And I'm pretty close to that, and I've been building policies for 10 years now, so I've got 9 policies myself. And the reality is that it's just liquid and you're able to do with it whatever you want. So if you come up with a great syndication and it looks like a wonderful opportunity, I don't have to ask permission. Can I invest in this syndication? Yes, I can if I feel like it's a good deal for me and my family. It's just, it's not a question of the liquidity. So I put as much as I can in, and I recommend that people on average put in around 25% of their income is kind of the goal. So if you're making $400K, we shoot for $100K per year going into a policy. And that obviously is going to be the max you can put in. That's not the required amount. That's going to be much lower. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Maybe walk us through, because a lot of our listeners are thinking about investing in real estate. And then how do they layer that investment in with the infinite banking policy? Walk us maybe through an example of what that would look like.
Oh, I would love to do that. So I personally do some private lending, right? So for real estate, I will take money and collateralize my cash value of my life insurance policy and loan it out to somebody who's needing money for real estate. And I make the spread, or I arbitrage the difference in interest rates. So the way that works is that, I'm getting capital at a low rate. This year it's 4%. That's my cost of capital. And if I can put it into a deal earning 12%, for example, on a private loan, then what is the actual rate of return that I'm making? So think about this for a second. If money's costing me 4 and I'm earning 12, right? There's a lot of people, Seth, out there that's like, oh, you're making 8%, right? That's not how it works. When you put numbers to it, that is not how it works. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to explain it in real numbers to help people go, oh yeah, this is what's really happening. On a $100,000 loan, it cost me $4,000 for 12 months, right? So I'm spending $4,000, not 100,000, because I'm not using any of my own money. And then if I'm earning $12,000 or 12%, then that's 4,000 spent and 12,000 made. What's the rate of return on that? Okay, when you run that through a calculator, the rate of return is 200%, because 100% would be doubling your money from 4,000 to 8,000, and 200% would be doubling it from 4,000 to 8,000 and doubling it again from 8,000 to 12,000. So I like to teach real estate investors how they can dramatically increase their rate of return by just utilizing this simple strategy. And it's really not that complicated. People try to make it complicated, but it's really not once you actually start doing it. And the reason I think I can communicate this well is because I actually do it myself, right? It's not theory to me. It's just something that I do every day.
Yeah, cook that eats his own cooking. I love that. I hate when people like try to peddle products and things like that. And it's like, well, do you do this or do you invest in real estate? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, well,
I totally, that is just not going to work because people can determine, they can see through that, right? If you really don't know what you're talking about, then it's not a good situation and you can't go there. I happen to notice on a side note that I see a guitar in the back of your room there. Are you a musician as well, Seth?
Oh, a long time ago. We used to do that in middle school, high school, and college to pick up chicks. That's about it.
Okay, so now you just have it there as decoration. I like it.
Now
the
beautiful guitars just sit there as just visual pleasure.
I'm looking at the headstock. Is that a Gretsch or a Gibson 335? What is that?
This is an Epiphone. The blue one's an Epiphone. We've got a Gibson over here. Gibson Starburst.
Okay, cool.
In the case.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool. I used to just be so into guitars. I mean, we had a vintage guitar stop right across the street from the studio I used to work at, and I was always over there every day. I still have I think it's a 1964 Gibson 225 semi-hollow body that is just skyrocketed in value since I bought it 30 something years ago. But anyway, sorry, off the subject there.
No worries. No, I'm sure that catches your eye.
Yeah, definitely.
Your background. So back to what we were talking about, though. I mean, that's really, maybe break it down a little bit for us. But I think that's how banks make their money, right? I mean, what you're describing is how banks
100%.
actually make their money.
They make their money on the spread, on the arbitrage. So if you deposited $100,000 to a traditional bank, they are not going to pay you hardly anything on that money. They might pay you 0.25%, right? And then they take your money and lend it out to somebody at, let's just say, 5.25%. So when you look at the actual numbers, you got to get percentages out of your head because most people are not trained to think in percentages, but they are actually paying you $250 cost of capital. They're turning around and making $5,250. And that's really a 20x multiple. So when you look at the rate of return on a percentage basis, that's a 2,000% rate of return. So banks are killing it with this same strategy. And what do banks actually invest in? They actually invest in a lot of whole life insurance. That's one of the things that they purchase hand over fist on every key employee that they have. They purchase a large amount of whole life insurance. So you kind of want to do what they do and not what they say, if that makes any sense. So I'm trying to teach people how to emulate the banking function and control it in their own life. And it has been so powerful to see the light bulb turn on for people, because I literally have people that save hundreds of thousands of dollars. I just got off the phone 30 minutes ago with a guy who has $600,000+ just sitting in his checking account waiting for an opportunity. Well, let me just break it to you. It's not doing him any good there, except for the fact that it's liquid. He's losing money due to inflation, no question. We're at an all-time 40-year high on inflation. It's just ridiculous. And that's just not the best place to warehouse your wealth. You're just giving the bank the opportunity to leverage that money and lend it out to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is exactly what we talk about on the show all the time, about creating your own economy, taking control of your finances, not giving it away to somebody else and say, here, best of luck. Now I'm stuck, 9 to 5 till 65, because I've given everything I've earned to somebody else to control. Something that important, you need to educate yourself and take control of it so that you can make some intelligent decisions.
Yes, totally. And I mean, that's probably, Seth, to be honest with you, why I didn't intentionally set out to work with almost exclusively real estate investors, but that's my client base. Why? Because they understand wanting to be in control of their money. They don't want to give it to the Wall Street casino and just have them really live on hopium. I call it smoking hopium, right? You're just hoping that things are going to work out, but you have no control of that at all. And somebody else is just making money off your money. And, these guys like to say they're in it with you, but the reality is they're just making a percentage off the amount of assets they control. Their percentage goes down slightly if they lose your money, but it's not going to really hurt them. Instead of making $15,000, they make $12,000. And in the meantime, you have lost 100. Right. So it's just not.
Yeah, there's no alignment of interest. I mean, even when you're, let's say with a syndication, you like to line up those fees so that, the investors as well as the active operators make money together rather than, the active operators making money no matter what, which is kind of the way that financial advisor system is set up.
Totally. Yes. It's very, very well put. So I love, I love talking to people like you who get it and who are trying to help people, increase passive income in their life. I think that's so critically important, to not be tethered down to, oh my gosh, I have to go to work. That's just having the option to do what you want to do and what you love is so important. To me personally, I love my job. I love doing what I'm doing. Nobody's telling me I have to be doing this. This is just me doing it because I love helping people. And it's really been a fun 10 years of really getting to know and understand the process.
Attorneys, doctors, passive income seekers, I'm talking to you. I remember investing in my first passive real estate deal, the anxiety, the uncertainty of what I didn't know, and what I had never done before. It was a lot of money being wired to someone I barely knew. Now, it all worked out, but that's not always the case. I would have never invested in that same deal today, now that I have the knowledge and the confidence to know how to invest intelligently. And now with a combination of uncertainty and a flood of newbie sponsors in the market, how do you find the true experts that will perform and make your investment successful? For those of you out there looking to learn how to invest passively in syndications, we've been behind the scenes working on something very special. You don't have time to go through a 6-month course or to try to make a program designed for deal sponsors work for you. You want to be a passive investor. Focus on your career and your family, but add cash flowing, appreciating commercial real estate investments to your portfolio so you can practice when you want to and not because you have to. We've built a powerful passive investor program designed to teach you everything you need to know, but nothing that you don't. It's a 4-week program, but if you really want to make moves, it can be completed in just a few days with ongoing support as you make your investment decisions. Passive Income Pro is enrolling now with a very limited number of seats for each cohort, so you can get the hands-on attention that you need. Go to passiveincomepro.io to learn more. That's awesome. That's awesome. What are some of the other strategies? Once we have that infinite banking policy set up, we've got a good bit of funds in there. We've talked about node investing. What are some of the other, investing vehicles or other strategies you can layer on once you have that infinite banking strategy or infinite banking policy established?
Well, so Seth, my understanding is that your audience is primarily made up of people who make active income, right? Would you agree with that? I know that traditional real estate investors, through depreciation kind of get their income down to almost nothing. But people in the legal services and what I do, we make active income. So what I love to do is find ways to have tax advantages on my investments and produce, passive income as well. So there's a lot of layered strategies that you can do. One of them is that I have done quite a bit is investing in ATM machines. I know that may sound crazy, but it is actually purchasing equipment, and that equipment has a deduction, and then it provides a passive income for about 7 years, on a monthly basis. So I just love that kind of thing. I also love energy investing because that has the ability to reduce active income as well. In anything in the oil and gas space, you can get definitely passive income, active income deductions on. So I'm big into thinking outside the box on what I do and trying to reduce. Obviously, I want to pay as little taxes legally as possible, right? So I'm always looking for those avenues. And I love to, help investors, teach them, what I've done, and just try to get the most value out of their infinite banking policy as possible.
Makes sense. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we've talked about ATMs as well. I've looked into that. I haven't pulled the trigger, but I do really like that. I like how quickly you can get your money back. I mean, you can see a 20 to 30% return in year one, and it's not guaranteed. We don't like to say guaranteed, but it's pretty
It's not
dang
guaranteed.
close.
Yeah, it's just, but I have been doing it for years, and it's pretty amazing though. I mean, you just have to work with the right operators, that know what they're doing. So it's just been a really fun thing as the light bulb goes on, for the people I work with. I love, just continuing to kind of get them started, figure out where they're going to save their money, and then move down the path of converting that into earning a greater rate of return than they're actually spending for the cost of capital. One of the things that I will tell you just real quick that is my pet peeve in infinite banking is these people that are coming out constantly saying stuff like, hey, you can go buy a car and it is the greatest thing since sliced bread with your infinite banking policy. It's like, you know what? Yes, you can do that, right? But you can also get a car financed at a lower rate than you would be paying the insurance company for. You're not making any arbitrage on that. Right. I always advise people to make sure if you're going to take a 4% loan that you're earning more than 4%. That is the magic to making the thing really explode for you. It's not, going on a trip to Hawaii and just spending the money, and then owing back a loan interest on that. I mean, or buying a car that you could get at a lower rate. I don't know. I mean, I know that everybody has different opinions on that, but in my opinion, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that's what I heard at first too, was look, you can, buy a car with your whole life insurance policy and buy against
Now,
it.
look, I tell people, hey, if you're in the rare car business and you can take a 1965 Corvette with a bunch of rust on it and buy it for $5,000, fix it up and flip it for $35,000. Hey, that is the ideal thing to do with your banking policy because your cost of capital is almost nothing. You're just paying the interest on that $5,000, and then you're paying for the improvements to it. So you have very little money in it. And then when you sell it, you're making a big capital return. That is awesome. Okay. Do that all day long with cars, but just going out and buying a new car that you're going to personally drive, I'm going, what in the world? That's just, I'm not into it. It doesn't make sense to me from a financial perspective.
Yeah, no, not me either. What are all whole life insurance policies created equal? I mean, because sometimes you hear about these older versions or what have you, and people think as soon as they hear about it, they think, scam, or they think, somebody's just trying to sell them something. How do you make that delineation between the old school one and not a scam, but it's a little bit different than the one that we're talking about?
Oh, yeah. So the old school whole life policies did not have any cash value in them till at least year three. So year 3 years of, the first year is zero, the second year is zero. And those policies paid a huge commission to the person selling it. So they were highly incentivized to try to get somebody to do that. Problem is, it was rarely in the client's best interest to design a policy like that. So the way that I do it personally is we put in as much capital as possible for the least amount of life insurance. And you do that through a series of riders and, blending term insurance in and adding paid up additions so that you can get this money in to the policy, but still have access to as high of number as possible. So I'm always working to do the opposite of what normal people in my position do, which is lower the commission to the lowest possible amount so that you guys, the clients can have access to the money. And it's just, Nelson was a genius for coming up with this, because if you do it right, the people are happy, because they have access to a lot of their capital. The only way it works financially for people like me is you have to do a large volume, which thankfully I do a large volume. So it works wonderful, but I'm not trying to squeeze these policies to make the most commission possible, because it just doesn't work for the client. And therefore I only do what's in the client's best interest. So they are definitely not all whole life policies are created equal. And there's some companies, by the way, that you can't design them properly. So they just don't work for infinite banking with that particular company. So you really have to be a specialist in this area to be able to squeeze the juice out of it in a way that it really, really works for everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. So be aware out there, they're not all created equal. Make sure you go into business with somebody like Tom that knows what your end goals are, your financial goals are for that capital that you're going to invest into that investment.
Yep, definitely. It's one of those beware, obviously this goes for any profession. I mean, you have to know who you're dealing with from a legal standpoint, and there's all kinds of different ways for pretty much anything. It's good to come through a recommendation, if possible.
No doubt. All right, Tom, before we jump into the Freedom 4, what's one last golden nugget for our listeners?
A golden nugget. All right. So the golden nugget would be, give me 1 second to think about that. Make sure if you're going to do this is the golden nugget. Just make sure that you're working with somebody who's doing it themselves. Ask them all about their own policies, right? If you're going to work with somebody, dig in, make sure that they're saying they're giving you the warm fuzzy that they really, really, really are doing it themselves, so that they can really guide you, because people can't take you where they've never been.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that applies to across industries, right? I mean, a lot of times you see that, particularly in residential real estate investing, like flipping and wholesaling and things like that, where, people sell these courses and sell these coaching programs. And it's like, well, where do you make all your money? Do you make it from the actual thing you're teaching, or do you make it from the coaching and the, and the courses? So make sure that,
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
You don't want to be getting stuff from people who make all their money on teaching other people how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's jump into the Freedom 4.
It's time for the Freedom 4.
What's the best thing you do to keep your mind and body healthy?
Well, for one thing, I live on a farm, 72 acres, and it's just so good to go on long walks out here. And, I love taking my dog on long walks, and, taking care of animals is very peaceful and relaxing, and gardening. So I love doing that kind of thing personally. And in keeping my mind healthy, honestly, reading scriptures and staying active with my faith is probably the best thing that I could recommend for people to do to keep their mind healthy.
Love it, man. My wife would be so jealous to hear about that farm. That's all she wants, is to move to a farm and get a couple of horses. We've been watching Yellowstone, so
Oh, got it. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I mean, we just moved. We bought it in 2019, spent 2.5 years, including the whole COVID period of renovating it, which just drug on forever. But then we moved in about 9 months ago, and it's just been amazing. I love it. It's a totally different thing than being in a tightly packed, subdivision, which is where we were.
Awesome, man. Well, congrats. With all your success, what is one limiting belief that you've crushed along the way, and how did you get past it?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, a limiting belief, it's really difficult when you're changing careers to go, you know what? I was really successful here, but I have no idea if I'm going to be successful in this new career. So, I think the limiting belief was, what will happen? Do I just go through all this education and will it turn into anything? And I just sort of had to push through all of that and just move forward. And eventually, it all happened in a way that was really better than I could have even imagined. So my way of pushing through it is basically you kind of gotta just move through fear. You're never going to be at a place where things don't scare you. When you're moving into the unknown, you just kind of try it one step at a time. And then you look back and realize it wasn't nearly as scary as you thought it was going to be. So I would say for me, that changing career thing was the big one.
Love it. Love it. What's one actionable step our listeners can do right now to start creating more freedom?
Well, it depends on how you define freedom. Okay. I'm assuming we're talking about financial freedom, but, honestly, I would just take the first step. I mean, learn, don't be arrogant and think you know everything. That's, I guess, the thing is just try to have a humble, teachable spirit and realize that, hey, there's always something new you can learn. There's a lot of people who've never heard of what I do, and they always ask, if this is so great, why haven't I heard about it before? Well, the reality is that just not that many people know. It's not that it doesn't work. It's not that it's not great, but wealthy people honestly are doing this and have been for a long, long time. It's just now kind of getting around to filtering down to the normal, average person. So, I would say just keep learning and being open to new things.
I love that. I love that. All right. Last but not least, how has passive income made your life better?
Well, passive income, I love having passive income personally because it helps it reduces stress to know that if things don't work 1 month or 2 or 3 or 4, and you can't, you don't earn the income that you normally do. So for me, I'm all over the place. I don't have guaranteed income. And that's why I like to have a floor of passive income that is going to guarantee that all of the bills are paid and everything. So I love having that. And it does add an element of freedom and an element of just more stress reduction to have passive income coming in.
Awesome, man. All right, Tom, it's been great having you on. Where can our listeners find out more about you?
So my website is bulletproofwealth.info. It's really important. I could not get .com. The guy has had it parked and won't sell it. It's a disaster. So I ended up doing bulletproofwealth.info. My strategy is trademarked Bulletproof Wealth, and go there and listen. I have a free video education course that you can sign up for just by putting your name and email in. There's a lot of people in my business that charge for this kind of thing, and mine is really high end, and I don't charge for it because I really want to educate people and make that barrier of entry as low as possible. So please go to bulletproofwealth.info, sign up for that, and you will be amazed at what's on the other side.
All right, guys, check that out. Tom, once again, it's been incredible having you on. Come back soon.
Thank you so much, Seth. I really appreciate it.
Tom Laune, ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible story, right? And it just goes to show you, I know there's a lot of attorneys and doctors and folks like that are out there listening. And, sometimes you just need to take a step back and think about what happens if you're no longer able to do what you get paid to do. Let's say something unfortunate happens and you're unable to type or unable to use one of your hands, are you prepared for something catastrophic like that to happen? And one way to prepare yourself for that is to create more than a single stream of income. Now, I preach it all the time because we think of ourselves, if we have a high paying job, we think that we're protected. We think we're getting paid a lot. We're, in this high and mighty position as an attorney or a doctor. But at the end of the day, we have one income stream. And if something happens to that one income stream, we're in a lot of trouble. And that's why you have to create multiple streams of income. And that's why we preach creating these streams of income through side hustles, through small businesses, through real estate. Well, the way that I've done it is through real estate. And if you want me to teach you how, we've created Passive Income Pro. It's a 4-week program. It's guaranteed to give you the knowledge and the confidence you need to invest in your first or your next passive real estate deal. Just go to passiveincomepro.io to get started. And as always, all right, kids, enjoy the journey.
Thank you for listening to the Passive Income Attorney Podcast with Seth Bradley. Do you want more ideas on how to generate multiple streams of passive income? Then jump over to passiveincomeattorney.com for show notes and resources. Then apply for the private Facebook community by searching for the Passive Income Attorney on Facebook. And we'll see you on the next episode.